It was a new year with a new police board for Thunder Bay. In January, the administrator hired to rebuild the defunct Police Services Board apologized to the community for its systemic failings.
On behalf of the board, I wish to apologize to each and every member of the Indigenous community of Thunder Bay for the existence of systemic racism.
The apology was one of the recommendations from a report by Senator Murray Sinclair that found systemic racism in the Thunder Bay Police Service.
I am here today on behalf of the board to state to each and every one of you that we accept that finding. As hard as it is to say, we have to acknowledge that there is systemic racism in the board and in the police service. This community has suffered a lot over the years because of racism. And for that, I apologize.
Also in January, a judge ruled Braden Bushby would stand trial for second-degree murder in connection to the death of 34-year-old Barbara Kentner in 2017. It's alleged that Bushby threw a trailer hitch out a car window as it drove by Kentner. It hit her in the stomach and she died several months later. Bushby's trial is scheduled for 2020.
This has been going on for so long, and my mom, she deserves justice, and I deserve to finally be able to grieve. And I don't know, I just want this to be all over so I can finally start grieving.
In June, Thunder Bay Police Chief Sylvie Hoth announced they would be reinvestigating 9 deaths of First Nations people. It was a recommendation from a report by the Office of the Independent Police Review Director that found systemic racism in the police service last December. Those investigations are expected to wrap up in 2020. In the year following Canada's legalization of cannabis, First Nations in Northwestern Ontario were busy navigating their options for joining the market.
We believe we're a sovereign nation. We do believe we have our own ability to write our own laws and our own regulations, and I think that this can be achieved in a transparent and responsible way.
The year also saw a number of First Nations in Northwestern Ontario declare states of emergencies for different crises. In February, Niskandiga First Nation fired the contractors hired to finish their new water treatment plant, fed up with the delays in their fight to get clean, safe drinking water.
Despite all the challenges, despite all the things that we faced this past week, our people remain strong and steadfast in resolving this issue, standing with their decision to try to resolve once and for all the longest boil water advisory in Canada.
By summer, a broken water pump left the community with no running water, forcing the chief to self-evacuate 200 people. That's since been fixed, but as another year comes to a close, the community still waits for clean, safe drinking water. In Cat Lake, housing inspection reports found most of the houses in the community were infested with mold and children were getting sick, a result of Indigenous services not living up to their commitments, said the chief.
We get $248,000 a year from the government to build 3 houses, and we're expected to make 3 out of 248, which means that the material we can afford of that is substandard. It just doesn't do it.
Indigenous Services responded to Cat Lake with about $10 million for new houses and renovations, but no long-term commitments. In May, the Canadian Armed Forces helped evacuate the people of Pikangikum when a forest fire burned only a few kilometers from the community. Then in July, another forest fire forced the community of about 4,000 to evacuate a second time. The town of Sulikout declared its own state of emergency for its ongoing social crisis. pleading for the governments to step in and help address addictions and housing.
We need a detox center. We don't have a detox here. We need more. We need a fully resourced emergency shelter. We right now have basically it's a large old house, and there's room for 20 mats on the floor. People are sleeping on mats on the floor, wall to wall.
In November, an ice jam along the Severn River began flooding the community of Bearskin Lake. Around 300 people were evacuated for about 2 weeks before it was safe to return home, but the flood risk remains a concern. Fed up with negative media attention on the city, teachers at Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School launched a new campaign, Wake the Giant, to promote safe public spaces for Indigenous students and people living in the city.
This logo represents that everybody, that organization, that store, that everybody that works there will treat Indigenous people with the respect and dignity that they deserve.
Organizers then opened up more space with an outdoor summer concert that is set to return in 2020. Fed up with waiting on promises from Indigenous Services, Chief Rudy Turtle of Grassy Narrows threw his hat into the federal election ring. Turtle lost to the Conservatives in October, but remains committed to ensuring the government lives up to its promise of a new treatment facility for community members living with mercury poisoning from contaminated water.
And we want this treatment center to be built, and also we continue to pursue that the river be cleaned up, because we want a healthy environment and we want the people of Grassy to be healthy.
And 6 years after it was burned in a fire and the lengthy court battle that followed, the historic James Street Bridge finally reopened to vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Canadian National Railway was ordered to repair the main link between the city and Fort William First Nation last spring, and it was reopened in November. Willow, Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.